Let's talk about your OBGYN nurse days and what prompted you that, there is something that needs to be done in this competitive medical device industry. Being a nurse to a startup founder and entrepreneur, take us through that journey.
As a nurse, you do things, you know the problems firsthand with the patient because nurses are the ones who spend the most time with the patient. Once I became a mother myself, which is when I decided that there needs to be something more advanced than just relying on fingers and on these charts.
Let's talk about your OBGYN nurse days and what prompted you that, there is something that needs to be done in this competitive medical device industry because there are big big medical device company here in the US who dominate. They have the research power, they have the research money, R&D tax credit, so many things. Being a nurse to a startup founder and entrepreneur, take us through that journey.
Yes, sure. So, as a nurse, you do things, you know the problems firsthand with the patient because nurses are the ones who spend the most time with the patient. But we don't always know the consequences of things that might go wrong all the time. The doctors are the ones who deal with that liability issues and everything like that. In post-Soviet Union countries, Uzbekistan, be it Russia, be it other countries, Kazakhstan, we have a problem with labor and delivery departments where we fill out the patient charts after the woman has her baby. So we're not filling in the data, the exams that we are doing during the labor, or we can do some drafts, but we don't fully document it. And once the woman has her baby, we just fill it out nicely as if everything went perfectly and the progress was stable, mathematically correct, versus the actual data is completely different. There was hectic, it was ups and downs. We don't put it on the charts. At that point, I thought, well, I'm not sure if I'm doing the exams correctly, but why does it matter? Because I can put the chart out later with correct numbers, with the numbers that would look nicely once the woman has her baby, because at that point, it wouldn't matter anyways. And I didn't think of it from a patient perspective, how it might affect the patient. Once I became a mother myself, and once I was at the patient side, and the nurses were doing not the same thing because I was having the baby in California, so it's more documented here. But when I saw that the exams were incorrect and led to some consequences that could have been irreversible, I understood the pain of the patient. There are actions of the nurses or the doctors that will have consequences on the mother and the baby. There are two lives at stake. And in that case, I could almost lose my baby because of the wrong exams and wrong interventions that were calculated based on those exams, which is when I decided that there needs to be something more advanced than just relying on fingers and on these charts.
Wow. So you are building very technical LiDAR powered maternal health. Take us through your invention and the device and how it helps the women who is in labor.
Sure. So our device is LiDAR powered, like you mentioned, which is think of self-driving cars, rockets, or even our iPhones. All pros have LiDAR in their cameras. How I thought about it initially was basically I was brainstorming how to measure cervical dilation. I was checking all these devices that exist. There was none. There were some startups working on it. There were problems with them because those companies were created by biomedical engineers, not nurses. So they didn't see some clinical parts that could have been important. Their engineering was top notch. The clinical part, not so much. Then I decided to solve that problem from a separate perspective. And I have a Roomba. Do you happen to have a robot vacuum cleaner at home by any chance?
Yeah.
The Roomba, yeah. You probably know that it uses LiDAR, right? So
Yeah.
mine was broken. Basically, when I was brainstorming, it was stumbling up on the wall. And I thought, well, I need to fix this LiDAR. I think it's like turned off or something. And then at that point, it hit me like every moment I was, wait, we can use LiDAR for cervical checks because it scans the room. Why can't it scan the cervix? That was the point of actually thinking of LiDAR to apply for maternal health. And from that point, I started looking at different LiDAR pricings because there is a stigma or myth that LiDARs are expensive, which turned out it was not. It was very cheap right now because it's scaled so much. And that's when I decided to put it to scan the cervix and get all the numbers that are actually necessary from the finger method.
Wow. So, you started with this product because you spot a gap, lack of accurate diagnostic data and solutions. Let's take me through the bridging the science with entrepreneurial skill. What it takes to turn medical insight into developing something which will become a product to be used in the hospital system?
Well, I can only attest to my experience with this simple device, but I'm sure you talked to so many founders who already took it even further ahead. So, what I can tell about right now is it takes a lot of believing in what you're doing, not in terms of the solution, but in terms of the problem. Because I've been always told, don't fall in love with your solution, don't fall in love with your product, fall in love with the problem you're solving. Because
Right.
if something goes wrong, you can always change it and your ego is not going to be hurt. And that's what I keep in mind all the time. Uh, if the LiDAR, I had the mindset that if the LiDAR is not the right solution, I'll find something else. It's not about LiDAR, it's about the vaginal exams needing to be done better. So
Mhm.
it's been all about communication. It's been all about talking to doctors all the time, midwives, nurses, founders, hospital admins, CFOs, reimbursement specialists. I think a lot of CEO's job is chief of everything or chief everything officer, which means basically we're talking, networking all the time and trying to explain everyone different parts of the product.
What is your philosophy between a founder trying to build something, bootstrapping, or chase early funding rounds? What they should be doing if they are in your industry of medical devices?
Something that I heard last year that made me rethink of my positioning was don't raise too early, because I'm always pitching. The founders are always pitching. That's my job as a CEO. I'm always pitching and attending these events, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm able to accept a round, because there are so many milestones that we need to
Mhm.
achieve because we are ready to be funded. Because what am I, from an investor perspective, if I were to be an investor, which I'm not, but if I were to be an investor, why would I invest in someone who just has an idea? There are so many ideas. Ideas are dirt cheap, like people say. So last year, I heard that at a SoCal Bio conference. I was presenting there. I was talking about this. I talked about our animal studies, and that was the only milestone we achieved. Basically, this is the device. We have a prototype. The proof of concept has been done. That's it. And we just incorporated a month ago at that point. Um,
Uh-huh.
and they said, "What's your valuation?" And usually the valuations for it needs to be justified by the milestones, and but also enough to not be over diluted. That was the eye-opening moment for me. How would I justify the valuations I'm talking about? Not from the perspective of potential earnings, but from perspective of what I have right now. Why would I say we are worth 5 million or 10 million if we have nothing right now? Uh,
Mhm.
that's when I stopped our fundraising. We were raising for pre-seed to do the clinical trials and to
Mhm.
start FDA communications. I stopped it. I thought we can actually bootstrap it. You can ask for small checks from doctors, some donations. That's what we did. We got some donations from the patients who had the problem we are solving. We got an angel check from a doctor who believed in this product, and that's what how we kept through the patent filing, through the FDA Q sub meeting, through some partnerships with the hospitals. Now we're integrating into Epic, which is also through the grants from them. So we try to be super, um, how would I say, frugal about the money, and try to
Mhm.
utilize all the free resources as well as all these grants and different in-kind supports that are available. Stanford does a great job at that. The InterSystems is doing a great job. We're in the hub basically, right, in SoCal.
Right. Yeah.
We're in the epicenter of everything. So that helped me, and I think that's what every founder has to follow. Do whatever you can do to reach as far as you can with no money or with in-kind support you have around.
Mhm. So true. So true. Uh, as you said that you have met with so many investors and you're always in the fundraising mode, but it has to fit into the philosophy of the fundraising that you have. For the founders listening today, what do investors usually misunderstand about the healthcare startup like yours? What is the misconception? Because many of the investors are not very focused. They would invest, early stage investor, idea stage investor would invest in anything and everything where they see that they can make a couple of X returns. So, what is the misunderstanding of a healthcare startup like yours?
One, that it's boring, that it's all bureaucracy and that's it. and two, that FDA is some kind of a monster who wants to sink everyone and everything and doesn't want any innovations. Those two things are completely wrong, and I keep hearing that. FDA is actually super collaborative. We had the Q sub meeting with them, and my regulatory consultant told me this is the first time I'm seeing 9 people from FDA in the room instead of the typical 3 to 4. They actually seem to be invested and interested, and they did background investigation on the device for us. Some things that my consultants were doing, they also did in parallel for us for free. So FDA is super collaborative. They are really actually open to bringing the innovations if they see a good fit for that.
Mhm.
And from the perspective of it's boring, it can be boring if it's just one device company or one thing that you are tackling. But in our case, we are not looking at this company from just a medical device perspective. We're looking at it as we are early medical device that is going to get so much data, the first of its kind cervical library database that will be then used licensed to all these AI companies who are trying to do some femtech advancements, and also for our own advancements in AI labor prediction models, in fertility and cervical oncology, because we are scanning with LiDAR, and in menopause and beyond. So it can be bigger than just one device. The device is just a tool to acquire the data, in our
Mhm.
case, for example.
Right, right. The maternal health is, I believe, is an underserved market. There is a lot of innovation that need to come in. And you being the OBGYN nurse, I think you will attest to that. How important it becomes to also educate the investor about the transform of this industry and both the impact and the opportunity that is there for the investor. How do you do that?
In our case, it's not hard because we are tackling all childbirths. So the childbirths, everybody was born at some point. So it's a big market basically, and we are not tackling tam from the number of, hey, there are so many kids, and this is the potential payout that happens in all the kids. That's not what we are doing. We are doing the bottom up model, and even with that, it's easy to show big numbers with the formula that we are using to calculate the potential revenue we can generate. But obviously, it's hard to convince that the adoption rate is going to be high enough because OB gynecologists are usually conservative. Labor has been happening for centuries, for thousands of years, and usually OB gynecologists think we don't need that much advancements. It's natural process. So let's keep
Right.
it as natural as possible, as long as we can. Obviously, like if it's C-section necessary, then there would be some
Yeah.
other advancements. But it's harder to convince whether the adoption is going to be the way we are expecting, which is why we try to keep all the expectations extremely low in terms of adoption. And all the financial projections are based on below industry standards, not only for corporations, but even for small scale startups. We're keeping it below the typical numbers so that we have the pessimistic numbers and have a surprise if it gets better adopted.
Let's talk about the scale in a med device industry. Scaling in high health tech is tough. It is it is time consuming. Regulations, product validation, certifications, adoption. What is your approach for Lidavex to scale this product into the market one day?
Partnerships. I think that's key for us startups. The how the Hogue Ventures put it, the starving little companies who want to
Mhm.
get out there. Partnerships have been key and will be key for us. Partnering with the governments for the international scaling capacities. For example, we had a conversation with some representative about Qatar's government needing maternal health data and not being able to acquire it enough because they don't have tools. Hey, we are doing the tools, we are giving that data. Also with foundations, in our case, we are having conversation, for example, with Gates Foundation very soon, with their maternal health division, for rural applications. We're trying to find different value props for different foundations and for different organizations so that we
Mhm.
don't only focus on clinical, but also have multiple different markets to approach, so that even though we think we have a PMF right now, there is always a chase for a PMF constantly. And maybe there will be something that's even better PMF than what we think there is.
Absolutely. Kamala, thinking about Gates Foundation and all, how do you even so from a founder perspective when you go into any central product idea. How do you even think of that? Gates Foundation will have something like this. How did you learn that?
I talk to people a lot. For example, even today, I have like 8 meetings, and not all of them have any objectives. I try to talk to people to brainstorm while they're talking. I try to learn other
Mhm.
people's approaches, and while they're sharing with it through this, through that, I ask for the intros. Even with Gates Foundation, I thought about it from a rural application perspective. I knew that I want to get into Gates Foundation or contact with them, but most of
Mhm.
the corporate people I was asking to introduce me to them were not very connected with them, or even only introduced me to associates. I needed the director of maternal health division. So I got it from a founder. One of the founders who already had a communication with them told me, I think you are a better fit for them than I am. Let me introduce you to one of the people I talked to. And from that conversation, once we had the conversation with the gatekeeper, they initially immediately bumped me up to that director, and the director expressed his interest in actually learning more about this product and thinking that this is a good fit for them.
Partnership that you just talked about, building credibility with partner is a big thing, and that too with large hospitals and non-profit organizations. How do you do that?
I think being young for me helps a lot, because if I were a little older or more experienced, not in terms of age, but in terms of experience, I would have been dismissed after one call or after one mistake. But I get
Mhm.
excused a lot if I say something wrong during the first meeting. So I
Uh,
come to the meetings from an amateur perspective. How I tackle these partnerships is from being, hey, I'm a founder who's super passionate, but I have a lot to learn. Can you guide me through that as well? I know this is a partnership, potential partnership, but I also want to have some mentorship from you as well. And that has been very helpful for me. I think a lot of people who are the scouts, especially for these partnerships, for these foundations, they are the same age as I am. We're all Gen Z population. So we try to support each other. They try to support me, they try to connect me to the right people, but at the same time keep in touch, so that if I didn't make a good impression the first time, we can still retackle it again in the future. So that's been really helpful, I think. I think it's all about me being super amateur, but also them seeing that I'm young, so it's okay to be amateur.
let's
Mhm.
talk about the hardware part of the startup.
Mhm.
It is difficult to find a good manufacturer. It is There are challenges in manufacturing. Then there are import and tariffs and whatnot, cost, distribution.
Yes.
How do you approach that? How you are going to solve it for
Uh,
that startup?
I think we're lucky that we are in the period where all the manufacturing is trying to switch into American manufacturing rather than abroad. And we just happen to be at the right time of this switch. So there are so many companies right now out there, and I didn't have to look for them so far, because when I go to all these conferences and present there, one of the biggest advancements and advantages of these conferences is that I get to meet all these collaborations that actually are fruitful. One of them has been the manufacturing from Andrews Cooper. They do all the way from idea to actual scaled manufacturing. They have a lot of contract manufacturing collaborators, partnerships, everything. Last week, actually, it wasn't last week, 2 weeks ago, when I was doing a demo at the demo day from our accelerator where I graduated from, Realize, at ULP, our company, Lidavex, won the grand prize of $10,000 to collaborate with Andrews Cooper. So now that translates to around 45, 46 hours of engineering work from them, from their perspective. Um, so that is kickstarting the hardware part. That amount of hours is enough to integrate our LiDAR with an MCU, because our current version is computer based and it's manufactured from China, most of the components. Now we're
Mhm.
switching to in-house, in-country within the United States. We are changing the LiDAR a little bit. It's not hard to obtain the components in the US. So that's one of the good news. Since we are using LiDAR, such a small and simple technology, it's not going to be hard or affected by the tariffs within the United States. And the MTUs, everything is going to be taken care of by the Andrews Cooper again, all coming from the conferences, because there are so many local brilliant manufacturers nowadays.
Right, great, great. Let's talk a little about your fundraising journey. You said you have raised one angel fund from a doctor, and then you have taken some other smaller check. Are you all good situated? Like, your R&D tax credit, your cap table. Are you maintaining your cap table on an Excel, or do you have with one of the service provider or a platform? How do you guide the young entrepreneurs, the founders who are actively into the fundraising mode? Guide them how to prepare for fundraising is basically the
Uh,
question.
JP Morgan. JP Morgan is one of the first resources I reached out to because they have the startup ecosystem, which provides you free banking for 3 years or until you reach $1 million in fundraise, I think. And they have been a great resource because they have a cap table management tool. They invite you to do all these exclusive investor founder invite meetings. They invited me to JP Morgan Healthcare Conference in January. They do all this collaboration for free. We don't have to pay even for wire transfer. We don't pay that $30 fee or anything. There is literally no fees attached with JP Morgan. So in that terms, I think finding these kind of partnerships is the best solution. Uh,
Right.
you asked about partnerships for the cap table again, the JP Morgan. There is also Gust platform, which you only buy a subscription of their Accelerate platform for $800, I think, for a year, where you manage everything. You can issue the stocks, you can issue NDAs, you can issue board consents, everything basically, from incorporation to cap table management to option pools. Everything is within that amount.
Yeah, another company is doing very well these days. They are Singapore based, and they're doing very well. The name of the company is Capita, and
Oh,
they are giving free cap table tool to all the founders till they reach to a certain funding raise. So it is 100% free. So if you want, I can also introduce you. Keep it in your pocket. I know you are good with JP Morgan, but I would like to get an introduction to JP Morgan because I would like to talk to them and
would love to.
understand more of their services so that when I'm talking to founders like you, and if they are looking for a banking solution or something like that, I could recommend them.
That would
Uh,
be
you know,
perfect.
yeah. Now this brings to the end of the podcast. Give us some advice to the founders who are in med devices, health tech, or your domain. What are some of the pitfalls that you have realized through your journey, and you would like to guide them not to fall for it or not to make the same mistakes.
Think bigger. The first advice is always think bigger. You think you have one product, there's a lot of applications that you are not thinking about right now. Think about it not as a one small business company, that the small business with one small device, but think of it from a whole ecosystem perspective, because nobody's going to invest in one small tool or small advancement in what already exists in the market. I'm 2 times better or I'm 10 times better is never enough. You have to build something super big. That was very helpful for me when I was at JP Morgan conference presenting my company at their women's health pitch competition. We were in the finalists, and that's the feedback we got. Why are you looking at only the device? Why are you thinking about vaginal exams? Why aren't you thinking about the data that you are actually getting? This is so much bigger. This is the world's first cervical database that you can build, and you're not even thinking of it. You're leaving it as a trash. So this kind of thing is the most important part. Think bigger. The second is, I'm not sure if I can use bad words here, but suck it up and keep doing. Whatever happens, we can just keep doing. The world doesn't end. I had so
Right.
many failed meetings or so many bad news. For example, even with FDA, when I was thinking we have predicates and we can do 510K, the simple route, versus they said LiDAR has never been used in healthcare. This is going to be de novo, but this is non-significant risk. So we have some easiness for you. That was the end of the world for me at that point, because I was thinking, how am I going to position it? And then I repositioned it from a perspective. We're actually building something new. We're not just building something that already exists in a little tweak way, in a better way. We're actually building something new. So that really helped me to keep going. This
Right.
type of mindset. Just don't worry about the problems. Solve it. Solve what you can. What you cannot solve, ask for someone else to solve it, and keep going.